This is a Fox News alert. Police have confirmed multiple fatalities, perhaps many, in the British city of Manchester after an Ariana Grande concert reportedly was rocked by an explosion, at least one, Monday night. Jake Wallace-Simons is an associate editor at dailymail.com. He's on the scene there in Manchester, and he joins us now. Jake, can you hear me? Jake, can you hear me?
You said Jake.
All right, we're going to get back to Jake Wallace-Simpson, who's on the scene when we can clear up that connection. We're going to go now to Trace Gallagher, who's been monitoring this, and give us an overview. Trace, what do we know?
Give me the big picture here, Tucker. This happened about 10:35 local time there in Manchester. This was at the end of the Ariana Grande concert. Ariana Grande had just gone off stage, had walked behind the curtains, and there was some type of an explosion. Remember, the Manchester Arena is kind of a contiguous building with Victoria Station. The train station goes right into the arena. And the people, as you look at the social media accounts for the past hour and a half, 2 hours, the people who were actually inside the arena, they all heard something. They definitely heard something. A lot of them felt something. They could see the panic and the people kind of trying to run out of the arena, but they did not see smoke and they didn't see something explode. But now you have the transit police in the UK saying that they are now focusing this investigation in the lobby, the foyer, if you will, near the ticket office, because that's where they believe this explosion may have happened, and that's where they believe the multiple fatalities they keep telling us are there, and numerous injuries. We've been watching ambulances come and go for the better part of the past 2 hours. We have seen them arrive. We have seen them leave. We have not seen any video of actual patients being taken away on stretchers. The numbers we are getting clearly will change, but right now, from different reporting agencies, some of them are very high in the number of fatalities and injuries. We haven't seen the video to back that up, and we have not had any confirmation. Again, inside the arena, there was some panic. The people we saw coming out of the arena had pretty much superficial injuries. They had skinned knees, they had cut hands, and some people had what you could look like bloody eyes, but there was nothing significant coming out of there. But again, this appears to be going toward the sides of the arena, toward the box office area, where just after this concert ended, Tucker, at 10:35, that's when the explosion happened. Some heard one, some heard two. The most precise account we have heard so far is from a father who was waiting to pick up his family in the lobby. He's the one who heard one big bang, and then he saw bodies on the floor, he saw people running out, and he saw people who he says were severely injured. And there was also video that I'm sure you'll play very soon that was taken from a dash cam. You could hear the man. It was pointed directly at the Manchester Arena, and from the outside, inside his car, you could hear boom, one big boom. So clearly, if you could hear that inside a car on the outside of the arena, inside the arena, it must have been extraordinarily loud. Still waiting for officials to get back to us with numbers and exactly more specifics of how this happened. Tucker.
So, Trace, to be totally clear, it seems at this point there's very little question this was an intentional act. Is anyone claiming credit?
Yeah. Nobody's taken credit that we know of so far, and yes, in the early going, there was some reports that it might have been a balloon that exploded in front of a microphone, or it might have been, a speaker that went off. Well, now they're kind of taking that out because we have two different bomb squads that are arriving on the scene right now. The police are saying there are a high number of fatalities, an even higher number of injuries. So at this point, they are investigating this as an act of terrorism, and there is very little doubt that this was accidental. I mean, very little doubt that this was anything but an intentional act. We believe in the lobby area by the ticket office of the Manchester Arena, which seats somewhere around 21,000 people, depending on the configuration for the concert. But these were all, we should note, young people. I mean, I have a 16-year-old daughter who would love to see Ariana Grande in concert. This was filled with young people, and that's one more concerning thing to the officials there on scene in Manchester. Tucker.
No matter how many times you see something like this, nobody wants to believe it's happened again. Trace Gallagher, thanks. We're going to go back now to Jake Wallace-Simons. He's an associate editor at dailymail.com. He's on the scene in Manchester, and he joins us now. Jake, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yeah, hi.
What do you know?
Well, I'm here right on the scene, just by the police cordon, and a strange sense of calm has descended here in Manchester following the huge chaos that erupted at about 11 p.m. local time when a big explosion was heard at the entrance to the arena. I arrived on the scene about 20 minutes after that, and it was a scene of carnage. There was crowds of people moving away from the arena. There were parents running into the arena to try to find their children who were lost. And the first people that I spoke to were a couple of young women in their 20s who'd been at this Ariana Grande concert and had seen the explosion. They were so close to the explosion that they were hit by pieces of debris, and they missed death, they said, by a matter of minutes. As we know, there have been multiple fatalities here, although the number has not been confirmed, and a good deal of quite horrific injuries, as well as a lot of lighter injuries as well. Those two young women told me that they saw a woman covered in blood, leaning against a parked car waiting for assistance. They saw a child being lifted into an ambulance by paramedics. All the wounded were herded into a car park to begin with, and now some other casualty stations have been set up as well in nearby hotels. There's one hotel nearby in particular which is hosting a lot of children who were caught up in the attack and in the chaos thereafter, who have been separated from adults and have no one there to look after them. So these are the scenes of chaos that have dominated Manchester this evening, but now there's a sense that everything is slightly calmed down. The police have regained control. They're keeping everybody on the other side of the cordon and are taking this, through the steps that they've all no doubt rehearsed.
Were there, give us some context, assuming there is any, Jake, were there any indications in the last week that there was going to be anything like that? Were there any warnings sent that there was an expectation of authorities that there might be a terror attack or anything like this?
Not at all. The police did not issue any kind of warning in advance that the terror threat had risen. Recently in Britain, the focus of terrorists has been, as you know, on London. We had that successful attack not more than a couple of months ago in Westminster, where a policeman was stabbed to death by a terrorist. And shortly afterwards, another man who was clearly planning the attack, planning a similar attack with a rucksack full of knives, was arrested. So really people have been thinking about London, and there's a sense a little bit that Britain has been taken off guard here because people have been focusing on London. There's been no sense of any heightened alerts or any warnings about Manchester, and certainly not at this concert here where, you know, thousands and thousands of young teenagers were just enjoying an Ariana Grande concert. The star herself had just left the stage about 30 seconds before the bomb went off. There were lots and lots of pink balloons in the audience, and people speculated they may have been behind the sound before people started to see the fatalities and realize that this was a very serious attack indeed.
So we've got two details coming across the wires here in the U.S. Tell me if you know anything about either one. First, that hospitals in the region are reporting that the wounds they're treating are consistent with those suffered in a nail bomb attack. And the second, this being reported by an American news agency, that this was possibly a suicide bomber at work. Have you heard either one of those things?
Well, those are some of the rumors that are swirling around, but the police are urging caution at the moment. Normally, the British police are quite good in updating the media when they have definite conclusions or lines of inquiry that they can confirm, but that hasn't happened as of yet, and so I would urge a note of caution in that. However, there was one eyewitness who reported that her hair and her bag and her clothes were covered in blood and debris from human bodies. She'd obviously been very close to the bomb, and she'd been hit by some of this stuff which came at her from the blast. Now that, you know, may suggest a suicide bomb. It may be what people have been picking up and running with in terms of the developing rumors about this, but as of yet, the police have not confirmed either of those reports.
Give us a sense of where this took place. Is this right in the center of the city of Manchester?
That's right. This is right in the centre of Manchester. It's one of the proud parts of Manchester. It's a huge arena that can seat tens of thousands of people, and it's right next door to Manchester's main train station. So this is really the hub of Manchester, and Manchester is a major city in the north of England, which is home to hundreds of thousands people. The concert venue was packed out with lots and lots of teenagers and young people, particularly girls and young women. Some older people, some parents taking their kids to this concert, coming from far and wide, all over Britain. Ariana Grande fans having a chance to see her. And by all accounts, they'd enjoyed the concert until it was brought to such a horrible conclusion.
If you're joining us now, you're looking at live pictures from Sky News in Great Britain of the scene outside the arena in Manchester. We're on the phone now with Jake Wallace-Simons, who's a Daily Mail reporter, reminding us that the scene of this is right in the center of that famed industrial center, and it is right over, apparently, a rail hub. Kids at this concert, not exactly sure how many have perished, but apparently a significant number. Jacob, the train still shut down in Manchester?
Yes, the centre of the city is on total lockdown. I mean, let's not forget it's already 1:10 in the morning as well, so it's quieter now than it would have been during the day. But yes, the centre of the city is on lockdown. Certainly the area around the arena is all locked down. Police are stopping anybody from passing through. There are a lot of frustrated people here who weren't aware that an attack had taken place but can't get to their hotels or can't get home. The trains aren't running. There's a real sense that this was a major, major incident that took place here in Manchester. And at the moment, everybody is just waiting for the confirmation of the number of dead and seriously wounded. There have been a number of people that I've seen here, relatives of people who are missing, frantic with worry, pleading with police officers for news. And the police officers are taking them to casualty stations to see if they can spot their loved ones. So this is a very serious incident that has taken Britain by surprise this evening.
It is serious. Sky News is now reporting 19 have been confirmed killed in this attack. We're not exactly sure the nature of it beyond what we've already said. Some news organizations are suggesting it was a suicide bombing, apparently in the lobby of this arena, right at the tail end of an Ariana Grande concert. But 19 apparently dead, an unknown number of injured. Jake, do you have a sense of the magnitude of the injuries? Are there a lot of people being treated right now for non-fatal injuries?
There are a lot of people being treated. They've all been kept well away from the eyes of the press. But according to reports from eyewitnesses who have left the stadium, a lot of them have been sitting on the forecourt outside the stadium where they've been receiving treatment. And I've heard people reporting horrible scenes of people with their faces mutilated, their bodies mutilated, people propping themselves up against the wall, covered in blood, and all of the grisly stories that have become all too familiar in Europe in the past couple of years.
Well,
now, if that figure of 19 fatalities is correct, then that would put this up there with one of the worst terror attacks that Britain has endured in the past 20 years. I mean, it's
well,
not
so let me just say we're getting that number now, Jake, from police in Manchester in the UK. 19 dead at this stage. They're counting 50 injured. So give us a sense of the scale of this. When was the last time something like this happened in Great Britain?
I think the last time when something of this magnitude happened on British soil was probably in 2007 when there was the London attack, where a bus was blown up in Russell Square and there were some bombs on the tube on the underground as well. In that attack, that was a coordinated series of attacks that took out a lot of different people at a lot of different places, and we haven't seen anything as bad since then. And Britons have really felt that was behind us, that we thought that we weren't going to see anything as bad as that again. The attack that happened just a few weeks ago in Westminster was a knife attack and a car ramming. It was terrible, but it was not on this sort of scale. This is 19 people blown up at a concert. It does, I mean, every death is serious, but this does seem to be particularly harrowing tonight. It's
shocking. It's shocking, and yet in some ways it's not. Jake, thanks a lot for that, for your report from the scene and your perspective. We want to dip in now to Nick Martin. He's from Sky, and they are on the scene right there in Manchester.
Walking wounded and injuries, which demands a huge response from first responders, paramedics, police officers. And so police forces have been rehearsing for instances like this, but now they are embroiled in it for real here in Manchester tonight. The helicopter is in the sky, police cordons all around, and a huge amount of forensic interest will be now focused on the arena and trying to crucially build up a chronology of what happened, starting at the beginning of the concert. Who was searched? Was the searching sufficient? Was anybody in the arena with a device that they shouldn't have been in with? All these questions will now be traced back to try and establish what happened here in Manchester tonight. But the news that 19 people have died in that arena will be devastating for their family and friends, but also a huge wake-up call for the police forces here and around Britain. And police forces across Britain now will be on a heightened state of alert. Of course, Britain's terror threat level is already high. It's severe, which means an attack is extremely likely. There's perhaps talk of that heightening. Mark White was talking about that earlier, our Home Affairs correspondent. But around the cordons where I am, and I can only speak for what I see here, there's a lot of activity, a lot of police officers stopping people, some people coming back through the cordons who were at the concerts, although those numbers have diminished in the last half an hour, and it's almost impossible to get within, I would say, half a mile of the Manchester Arena now, which is a very city centre location. Its capacity is around 21,000. It's the biggest arena of its kind in Europe. It has high-profile concerts pretty much every week here in Manchester. It attracts young, old, families. They would all have been in there tonight. Greater Manchester Police tell us that they're going to set up a victims bureau. That will be a number which families who haven't heard from their loved ones yet can call to establish whether they're safe or whether tragically they have been caught up in this. Just seeing around the corner now, typical more police activity. This is ambulances going back into the scene. I've just seen about 2 or 3 leave. That's one that's going back in towards the arena, which is just down that road. This police cordon preventing us from going any further. Just see up here, police officers talking probably to residents or people who are trying to get in there. They are being told not a chance. It's now being fully sealed off. We did hear earlier from eyewitnesses who varying degree of eyewitnesses who all heard a bang as people were starting to leave that arena when the lights had gone up. Some people thought it might have been an electrical fault. Some people described it as a speaker or an amplifier exploding. But clearly the level of fatalities, 19 as of a few minutes ago, would suggest something bigger, something perhaps more sinister, and the police here would have set up a Gold Command at headquarters in Manchester. There'll be senior police officers organising this investigation now, monitoring it as a major incident, and terrorism will be high up that list of suspicions now, given the scale of fatalities and one would imagine the scale of the injured.
And just a bit more detail as we piece together what will now be a terrorist investigation, the chronology and geography. The statement from Manchester Arena, the concert venue itself, saying we can confirm there was an incident as people were leaving the Ariana Grande show. That much we knew. They go on to say, though, that the incident took place outside the venue in a public space. We had believed that the incident happened in the foyer area. So their statement says the incident took place outside the venue in a public space. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the victims. And as you can see, the
when we go out to a witness, someone who was there, it's a man called Chris Pauley. He was on the scene. He shot video of what he saw. Thankfully, he and his friends escaped the scene without being injured. Here's part of what he shot right there. We assume this is Chris. You on the line?
Yeah, I'm here.
What are we looking at? Is this the lobby?
Yeah, so that's actually in the station. So as we was coming out the arena just before Ariana finished a long song to try and beat the rush, we come out a few minutes early. We'd come just out of where the box office is situated in the arena, and then you go into the train station. As we get to the top of the steps, we heard the biggest explosion, and it was literally about 20 meters from where we were stood. Everyone started panicking. we initially thought it was a terrorist attack because that's just what you think because of what's going on. We ran down the stairs and then started to head for the door. Before we got to the door, we hesitated because of past things, what we'd seen. We thought they'd normally set a bomb off and then wait for people to rush, so we stopped, and then as we stopped, we got told to leave. The tannoys was going off, people were screaming and shouting. It was the worst experience ever.
So you heard one explosion. We're hearing reports there were multiple explosions, but you say there was one?
We heard we was actually in the building when one went off, and then as we left, that's when the second explosion must have taken place. So once we'd already left the building, and we just ran to the car, like didn't stop running.
Is there any security checkpoint between when you get off the train underneath the arena and the area where the bomb apparently went off, the lobby? No.
Even going into the concert tonight, I've been to concerts before, and sometimes you get patted down and get told to empty your pockets. There was absolutely nothing at this concert tonight. We just literally got our ticket scanned and was straight in. But so that was going into the concert, so there's no security whatsoever on the outside where the explosion took place.
So anybody could have brought anything into where the bomb went off?
Yeah, anyone. As we left, because there were so many young children in there and teenagers, and as we in the foyer where the explosion took place, as I was walking through, I said to my partner, there was lots of parents stood there, and I said, look at them all waiting for the kids, because I'd never seen it like that before, like so many people. So obviously they was waiting for the children to come out. So they would have been the people. Well, there was the people, because 20 seconds later from us walking to the steps, that's when it went off. A minute before I took that video.
It's enough to make you cry. So it's the parents waiting for their kids to come out of the concert, as parents do at things like this, standing outside waiting for it to be over, and then the bomb goes off. And then the parents, some of them ran inside the building?
Yeah, it was just chaos in the train station where we was, and then as we left, like the phones weren't working because we were trying to ring our friends to see if they was okay, because they were still inside at this point, and there was just panic and chaos.
So the cellular phone service was down?
Yeah, you couldn't ring anybody.
Did you see anyone injured?
I didn't see anyone injured, no. I think if we would have left 30 seconds later, we would have been caught right up in it. So we're so lucky.
You certainly are. There were reports that this might have been a suicide bombing, and I certainly don't want to pass those on without evidence, but a number of British publications are reporting that. Did you hear from any other eyewitnesses that is possibly true?
No, I've just literally watching the news now, and they've only just started using the word terrorist and stuff. So before that, they was just saying an incident, and then it went to serious incident, and then fatalities, and now they're saying it's a terrorist attack. So I'm not sure whether it's a suicide bomb or whatever it was, but
and we don't know that either. Authorities are calling it a terrorist investigation. That appears to be the operating assumption, and of course, it would be. You said it was your first thought. Is this something that you worry about in Manchester?
I mean, I do. My partner laughs at me because I always say, like, when we go shopping and stuff, I always just, like, look around for exits and stuff, just because it's in the back of my mind. I don't know, it just must be the person I sort of am. And he always laughs at me all the time. And as we were nearly in the car away from it all, that was what I said to him. I said, see, what do I always say to you? And you laugh at me, and look what's happened now. So, yeah, I think it's in a lot of our minds with what's going on in the world.
What did he say when you said that to him?
Just, he's still shook up now, his hair, and it weren't like a told you so thing. It was just because we're just too scared, but it's just all sorts going through your mind. I'm just glad we're okay, but it's heartbreaking when that people have died. It's making it feel even like when we come away, we didn't know that anyone had died, or we didn't know if it was. So we didn't know whether it was an accident or something. So now we're knowing that people have died and someone's done it intentionally. It's just making the whole situation a lot more worse.
Hey, are there any, you live in Manchester?
Yeah.
Have you gotten a sense that there was something like this coming recently? Was there talk of terror? Was there any kind of unrest, political unrest, religious unrest? You've got no sense of it at all?
No, not at all. Obviously, just what there is on the news and stuff, but nothing in Manchester. It's normally London, isn't it?
Yes. That's right.
No,
the focus is on, you always think of London as the place where something like this happens. How quickly did authorities get to the scene?
Very fast, very fast. As soon as we'd exited the building, there was police cars there, sirens, and then we ran to the car. That's all you could hear. And then as we're driving away up the road, we live just a little bit up the road, still in Manchester, and there must have been about 6 police vehicles driving at about 80 miles per hour, heading for the city centre. So yeah, the police responded really fast.
Are there checkpoints at public events typically in Manchester? When people gather for a concert, is there a metal detector or any kind of pat down typically? As there is in London?
There's never any metal detectors. We only have them in airports. Pat downs, like I said, I have been to a concert before and they've done it once or twice, but more often than not, there's not. You don't get patted down or anything, and definitely on this one, we didn't get any checks whatsoever.
Yeah. You said there were a lot of kids at the concert. By that, do you mean teenagers? And what percentage of the people would you say you saw there were young people?
From about eight right up to 16, and that was a majority of the people, children, because the people with them was parents taking to them. Like where I was sat, 20 seats all around me, it was all children with just a parent with them, like 3 and 4 kids, and just one parent accompanying them. And then there was 2 young girls sat next to me who was there. They must have been about 13. So
whoever did this,
whoever's done this, they've known that it's a concert what's mostly for kids.
So there was no doubt that this was a concert with children at it, lots of children.
1,000,000%. And whatever's happened or whoever's done it would have known that. I mean, it's bad enough people dying anyway, but then when you bring children into it, it's just it makes it worse.
What does this make you think? Why do you think this happened?
I don't know. I'm just confused to why anybody would want to do this to anyone. I just haven't got a clue.
Was anyone, you said there was panic after the bomb went off, and of course there would be. Do you think people were hurt in the panic?
No one was hurt because I was in front of the explosion, so the people behind me would have been the people what got injured, but obviously I'd already gone, running as fast as I could by that point, so I didn't see anyone injured.
Were people yelling?
Yeah, screaming. It was women crying and stuff. People trying to get through on the phones, you know, trying to get hold of the kids and crying because they couldn't.
You're describing something that's really awful, worse even than I thought it was when we first went to the story. And I'm glad you're okay, and I'm glad you're able to tell us about what you saw, because it's horrifying.
Thank you.
Chris Pauly, thanks a lot for joining us tonight.
No problem. Thank you.
So if you're tuning in right now, the man we're just speaking to is named Chris Pauly. He lives in Manchester. He was at the Ariana Grande concert tonight at around 11, maybe a little before, at the tail end of the concert. Somebody, we don't know who, nobody has claimed responsibility for it yet, set off some kind of explosive device in the lobby of the arena. Keep in mind, the arena is directly over the main train station in Manchester, Victoria Station. And there is apparently, according to Chris Pauly, no security at all, no barrier between the train station and the lobby. We know as of right now that 19 are dead, according to police, and at least 50 injured. Trace Gallagher's been monitoring this. We're going to go back to him for an update. Trace?
And it appears this was not a case of somebody circumventing security here, Tucker, because now the arena, Manchester Arena, is telling us that this happened outside of the arena. So we have been talking about this being in the foyer, in the lobby area, by the ticket area. Well, now the arena is saying this was in a public space. So apparently not inside the venue at all, but outside the ticket area. And that's where the 19, or at least the majority of the 19 fatalities were, and the 50-plus injuries. Remember, the man you were talking to said that he heard 2 different explosions, and we have differing accounts from a number of people who are around there. Most of them still say they heard 1 big explosion. Even the dash cam, that kind of makes sense to us now. We showed the dash cam earlier where a man was sitting there. His camera was focused directly on the Manchester Arena, and you could hear 1 loud bang. There it is right there. You heard the loud bang, and we couldn't quite understand how loud it was. If we can hear it. No. Yeah, couldn't quite understand how it was that loud outside, if it was inside his car, if the explosion was actually inside the arena. And all of the eyewitness accounts, people coming out of there, those who were inside the arena, they all heard something and they all felt something. But none of them saw anything that had to do with smoke or an explosion or people being critically injured. So it now kind of comes together where it wasn't in the lobby, apparently. It wasn't inside the arena. This was outside the arena. And you have to look at the timing here, because it was 10:35 local time in Manchester. Ariana Grande had just finished her concert. She had walked behind the curtain, and so there were people actually leaving the venue. This seats around 21,000 people. There were people leaving the venue, and they were near the box office area. What we don't know is if the box office was open or closed. We don't know if people might have been buying tickets for a future concert. That's unclear. We don't know why people were gathered there, but we do have eyewitness accounts from at least 1 man who said that he saw people lying on the ground bloodied. He was sitting near the lobby area, and he was waiting for his family to pick his family up. They were inside the concert. They, by the way, were fine. But he looked over and he saw these people and he heard the explosion, and he said that it appeared to him that it was happening very near the right side of the arena from his vantage point. And now we're being told that appears to be the case. It was outside the arena at the box office. And if that's the case, this would not be an issue of circumnavigating or circumventing security, even though your guest said there were no pat-downs. But we're being told, there was a fair bit of security in and around the arena at the time this happened. Tucker.
Trace Geller, thanks. It'll be interesting to find out just how much there was. That man said there was none at all. We're going to go to Tom Rogan, who's with us in the studio. His reporter's written a lot on this from the UK. Tom, this is the last time anything like this happened, I think, was the 7/7 attacks in July of 2005. Yeah. 55 or 6 people killed. That happened in London, of course. Manchester, not a place you think of terror attacks happening.
Well, you know, actually, yeah, I mean, you might not in the United States, but in the United Kingdom, Manchester has time and again come up on the counterterrorism radar. You've had major exercises there, as you have had in London in recent years, to try and prepare for a Paris-style attack. You've also had divergent plots in terms of both Al-Qaeda syndicates, the old form of, July 7th, as you mentioned, but also ISIS plots there. So it is very much on the counterterrorism radar, at least on the British sense. And by the scale of the response that we saw, I think it became quite clear early on that this was much more likely than not a coordinated terrorist attack, and a serious one based on the size of the explosion and the relative casualties. I think there's a reason we didn't see immediate photographs coming out of casualties, and that was that anyone in that blast radius was very seriously injured or killed.
So we're not going to even speculate as to who might be responsible for this, because we'll find out soon enough, and that would be unwise. But as a more general question, is there any potential terror group on the radar of British authorities that we're not aware of, that is not basically Middle East based?
Well, I mean, traditionally in the United Kingdom, the threat has been either Irish separatist groups,
That's right.
The IRA. This does not fit an Irish Republican group targeting profile, in the sense there's an American performer. The IRA would never target Americans, also children. There's a calibration there that suggests a jihadist group. But again, as you say, the consumption of intelligence that will be very quick in terms of the forensics of the bomb. You saw how quickly the British authorities have been communicating with American counterterrorism authorities. So I want to
interrupt you really quick here, Tom. We're just getting something from Sky News in Manchester. Authorities there are reporting that a second explosive device apparently has been found in or near the arena, and there will be a controlled detonation of that device. So that suggests right there a level of coordination and sophistication, and tells us something.
It does, and I think the immediate impetus, and I do think it's why you see, I suspect you will see a statement by the British Prime Minister this evening about what they call a COBA meeting, which is National Security Council meeting. It suggests more than what we have, an Omar Mateen type figure who's access to firearm, because the level of, one of the great benefits, unfortunately, if you can call it that, of ISIS plotting or Al-Qaeda plotting, or any plotting, quite frankly, in recent years has been that the actual explosive device are quite crude, that even if they come to fruition, they're badly made. This clearly, someone knew what they were doing here, which immediately upticks the concern level, because it says, okay, who trained this person, where did they come from, what is their organizational structure, what might be coming tomorrow or next week. So this is, as you said at the beginning of the interview, I think the most serious, very obviously, investigation since July 7. And is jumping up that radar.
Do you think that this will spur a public conversation, a free exchange, on whether or not there's a problem, a real problem that is dividing British society, taking the lives of innocents, as we saw tonight? Or will the people in charge do their best to tamp down that conversation, which is what appears to have happened?
No, I think it's inevitable, the conversation, sadly for a simple reason. This reflects what, behind the scenes, counterterrorism officials have been very concerned with a long time, is the targeting, as it seems, of children in particular, and teenagers. There's obviously an emotive element to that. It's in the middle of an election season as well. On June 8th, next month, the British people will go to the polls, and the Prime Minister and the main opponent, Jeremy Corbyn, have quite divergent viewpoints on whether terrorism is a serious concern. So it comes at a very politically emotive time, and I think there will be rendering in terms of national conversation.
There ought to be. We're going to go right back to Sky News here, who has an eyewitness in front of the camera.
Then when the man shouted, "Run," with real panic, we did. We came out, smelt it, and then it sunk into me what this was.
Jenny Brewster speaking to me a short time ago, who obviously managed to escape that loud blast with her young daughter Evie, 11 years old, and at her first concert. I fear they will both remember that for many years to come. Press Association are reporting that Greater Manchester Police have now carried out that controlled explosion in the Cathedral Gardens area near Manchester Arena. Was this a second suspected device? We will await official confirmation of that, but certainly as we look at the scene there is a large cordon placed around Manchester Arena. British Transport Police also reporting on this incident, saying the Victoria Station is closed, unlikely to open for some time to come, certainly. And the AFP news agency saying that controlled explosion is being carried out. Some confusing information about whether or not that has happened, but certainly we knew that it was imminent. Ashish Joshi is here with me, and at the moment, Ashish, social media is full of, first of all, people offering homes for people. I know Andy Burnham, the mayor for Greater Manchester, is saying follow hashtag Room for Manchester, with hotels and local people offering refuge, but also people are trying to track down those who are at that concert, aren't they?
Social media is full of photographs. We can't, say whether these are all genuine, but certainly appear to be genuine. Lots of people who were at this concert. We heard from the witnesses you've been speaking to tonight, Ariana Grande. Huge following among teenagers, younger children who have been separated from their parents, so distraught parents waiting to hear from their children. Lots of people are posting pictures of friends who are at the concert who they haven't heard from this evening. That could be for a number of reasons, but certainly they want to know if their friends are safe. The good news is lots of people who have been posting these photos are then reposting to say that their friends have been found. Reports that there are hotels which have taken in lots of children who are waiting to be reunited with their parents. Manchester taxi drivers offering free rides to anyone, because we know that the transport situation is quite dire. And as you were saying there earlier, the Room for Manchester hashtag is trending. Certainly people offering accommodation to anyone who's stuck in the city tonight as they try and come to terms with what is certainly a devastating incident. 19 people confirmed dead, 50 injured. The hospitals are already warning that they are diverting all resources towards Manchester Arena. Certainly many people being taken to local hospitals, and they are asking all non-life-threatening injuries not to go to hospital, people who are not associated with what happened at the Manchester Arena, not to contact the hospitals. So certainly emergency services, including police, stretched tonight, but certainly the witnesses we've spoken to seem to suggest that they are coping with the situation.
Let's just listen now to more reaction from people who were at that concert.
Well, it was a massive bang, and then everyone just started running towards us, screaming and crying, and didn't know what had gone on. So everyone was like trampling over us, and it was just awful.
Yeah, we were just really confused. There was a big bang, smelled smoke, everyone was screaming and crying, and we were just told to come round here and didn't even know what was going on.
And did you see anyone being treated in an ambulance or anything?
No, it was just like what people had said, like they'd seen people with blood on them and stuff like that, and there's been a bomb, and then everyone was saying there was a gunshot, so we didn't know what had gone on, really.
And like, what was going through your mind when you heard that loud explosion?
Obviously we were scared, weren't we?
Really scared, because we didn't know what it was. We were kind of hoping it wasn't the worst, but then it ended up being the worst sort of thing.
Yeah. And how would you describe like what people were like? Was it just like sheer panic? Was it everyone?
Yeah, everyone was just panicking and running towards the door.
Never seen anything like it. It was just like really scared.
Yeah. And obviously we've now heard from the police that people have died and it's terrorist related, they believe.
Yeah.
Even more shocking when you hear that.
I know, like we just literally, because I mean, we googled it as soon as we got out, and like people were saying that.
I want to go down to Nigel Farage, certainly an ascendant political figure in the UK, led the charge for Brexit last summer. We've got him on the line now. Nigel, you there?
Yes, I am. Good evening.
What's your reaction to this?
Well, horrified. I mean, this is a direct attack on children, which marks a new low, I think, in all forms of terrorism. I mean, we've seen, over the years, we've seen attacks on all sorts of different communities. In fact, the last nail bomb we saw in the United Kingdom was actually planted in a gay pub. So we've seen all sorts of horrendous things happen, but a direct attack on kids, it is absolutely awful.
What do you think the ramifications of this are going to be? I mean, given that we don't know anything beyond what we've reported now, but it raised certain suggestions, and I wonder if it will change the nature of the debates that have been going on in the UK for a while.
Well, I think to a very large extent, we've looked at the kinds of terrorism that have happened in Belgium and France, and they've been incidents, repeated incidents. I mean, 20 incidents in the last 3 years in France of Islamic terrorism. And I think we've kind of, I won't say got complacent, we've convinced ourselves that we're in a better place than the rest of Europe on this. Now, obviously, I'm not going to rush to judgment as to who the perpetrator is, but I think that any sense that the United Kingdom is safer than France or Belgium has rather disappeared this evening.
It sure seems to have. Were you surprised that this took place in Manchester rather than London?
Yeah, funny enough, I was actually in Manchester myself tonight. I mean, it is our second city. It is a big city. It is a thriving city. But yes, you know, we think of, when terrorism happens in this country, we think of the London Tube bombings. We think of the guy who ran those people down on Westminster Bridge.